Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel, The Langue-lit World. Friends, in last video I talked about the American English literature. Actually, I introduced the American English literature from the early American literature to the Romantic period. But friends, in today's video I'm going to talk about the American English literature after the Romantic period. So without wasting our time, let's move to the main point. The next age that started after the Romantic period in America includes the rise of realism. I mean to say the age of realism that continued from 1860 to 1914. Guys, this is the age that tells us about the Civil War that was fought between the South America and North America for 5 years successively from 1861 to 1865. At that time, America was divided into two parts, South America and North America. North America was completely industrialized, whereas the South America was not industrialized. It was a slave-owning place. It was an agricultural place. It was a colonized place. So there was a conflict between the two states, as we can understand. See, besides this, the result of the conflict between the two states was that America got transformed from a small, young, immature agricultural ex-colony to a young, huge, mature, and industrialized nation. Apart from this is the age that tells us about the alienation, how it grew with the passage of time, with the growth of industrialization. Writers who wrote in relation with this alienation include Samuel Clemens, who is also known as Mark Twain. He wrote by his pen name, that is Mark Twain. Other writers include Stephen Crane, Jack London, Theodore Dreiser. Friends, this is the age that tells us about the local color writing, how local color writers came forward to represent America at that time. One of the writers is Bret Harte. He wrote adventurous stories. Besides that, a few women writers also came forward and they depicted New England throughout their writings. You can see their names on the screen. When we talk about local color writing, we must not forget the southern writing. See, in the southern part of America, local color writing was done by different kinds of writers, such as George Washington Cable, Kate Chopin. These writers raised different themes in the history of American English literatures, like gender inequality and racial injustice. Apart from this, in America, different kinds of writing was done. Cosmopolitan writing also was done. Cosmopolitan writing was written by Edith Wharton, Henry James. Another important feature of this age is that it includes muckraking and naturalism. You know what I mean to say. In this age, the naturalists came together. They took the theme of realism to relate individual to the society. They influenced not only the Darwinian philosophy but also the philosophical doctrine determinism. Here determinism means human work is not independent. Such kind of writing was done by Stephen Crane, Jack London, and Theodore Dreiser. Besides this age lets us know about the Chicago School of Poetry. Actually, the Chicago School of Poetry was a group of poets, Midwestern poets, who wrote poems. And they shared Midwestern concerns, issues with ordinary people. Besides that, they tried to discover new techniques of realism in their poetry. During this period, women regional writers also came forward. They wrote poetry, and throughout their poetry, they tried to explore women. Their writing traveled from male-dominated society to female-dominated society. Another important feature of this age can be included here or discussed here, that is the rise of Afro-American literature. This age tells us how Afro-American literature took its hold in literature, especially in autobiography, protest literature, song, and poetry. Such kind of writing was done by Booker T. Washington, W. E. Du Bois, James Weldon Johnson, and Charles Waddell Chestnut. After the age of realism, a new age arose in America in 1914 that continued from 1914 to 1945. And this age was popularly known for modernism and experimentation. This is the age that tells us about the two world wars and how the two world wars affected the whole world. This age tells us how Europe was brutally affected. Also, it tells us how it affected America in a little proportion. This age tells us how modernism entered in Europe and America in the early 20th century. Actually, modernism expressed a sense of modern life through art. Actually, it was a reaction to the past. It deviated itself from the past tradition. It rejected the past. Also, it rejected Western civilization's classical tradition. In this age, we can see how modern life was faster, how it became faster, more scientific, more technological, and more merchandised. In literature, Gertrude Stein developed the analog to modern art. Later on, vision and viewpoint became important aspects of American novel writing. American writers like Henry James and William Faulkner experimented with the traditional point of view. When we talk about poetry during the two world wars, we must not forget that this period was dominated by experiments in form. In the field of poetry I'm talking about, this period was dominated by different poets like Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, Wallace Stevens, Robert Frost, and William Carlos Williams. Between the two wars, many poets wrote poetry, and you can see their names on the screen. In the field of prose writing in America at the time, writers experimented with the form and point of views. They wrote more realistically. During this period, novels about social awareness also were written by different writers, as you can see on the screen. During this age, William Faulkner wrote a very popular novel, namely The Sound and the Fury. This age includes the Harlem Renaissance, which includes a group of Afro-American poets who wrote poetry. You can see their names on the screen. When we talk about drama, this is the age in which for the first time we come across drama. We can say the rise of drama is found out in this age. See, in this age, American writers started writing dramas. They copied the European theaters. They copied the European dramas. Actually, the European dramas also were translated into the English language, but actually they were criticized by the European writers. You can see the names of the writers who wrote dramas during this period on the screen. F. Fitzgerald and the dramatist Eugene O'Neill repeatedly presented tragedy before audience.